What's up, everybody? We are back. Week 8 college football upon us. First look, best bets, everything you need to know about the marquee games here at Betting You. Here at Odd Chopper, I am Ben Raza. That is Matt Gajewski. We are ready to go. We are going to give you our first looks, our favorite bets of all the marquee matchups with this Week 8 slate. We're going to look back at Week 7 and tell you everything else going across the industry, sir. We're over halfway home. We are getting there. We're in the thick of it now. How are you feeling?
I'm doing great myself. A little
Good.
sad that we're over halfway
I
home.
know.
Yeah, it's been a great start to the season. Yesterday was one of my best weeks of the year, coming off one of my worst. So that was interesting to see. Finished with a 28-1 record. That one push being Oregon, which is really the only game I have major takeaways from. And it's not even that I think one team is clearly better than the other. Oregon finished with more yards per play than Washington, but they decided to take a high variance approach with some of the fourth downs they went for in high leverage situations. And you play a high variance game plan, game style, whatever you want to call it, you end up with high variance results. So I think Oregon is the better team than Washington, but the way they chose to play could have very easily gotten them the win, but ultimately it contributed to a loss. And now it'll be interesting to see moving forward. I think when you look at these conferences and the favorites to maybe win them, make the playoffs, we're potentially looking at a couple rematches. Pac-12, they've got that little round robin. They're all the good teams are going to play each other, and some of that hasn't shaken out yet. But I don't think anyone would be surprised to see Oregon face Washington again. Oregon gets a win in that game. You got a really muddy situation heading into the playoff. We've got the same thing in the Big 12. No one would be surprised to see a Texas-Oklahoma rematch. Texas was the better team in that game, averaged more yards per play. Turnovers got them. I don't think anyone would be surprised to see Texas with a win. You got a muddy situation in the Big 12. So it's pretty weird looking at futures right now. We know the Big 10 champion and the SEC champion are getting in regardless of win-loss record, but everything else is a complete mess.
It really is up for grabs. Love to hear the old 20 wins. And you keep the losses under 10 is a good week every week. I was not so fortunate because I did not have a good week. So I need to rebound here in week 8. I said this in Discord. I'm not joking. My teams as a whole on Saturday, off touchdowns were averaging 6.5 points, maybe. Extra points and 2-point conversions were not my friends. Rutgers missed a crucial one. Kansas missed 3. Washington State missed 1. Not sure that mattered because they lost by about 50 points. My biggest gripe, honestly, with my entire card, Oregon State, my favorite bet, crushed. I love that team. They're my favorite team in the country right now. I knew Notre Dame was not as bad as they showed against Louisville, and I knew that Louisville was not that good, and I just couldn't do it against Pittsburgh, and I didn't pull the trigger against USC. Both of those were really frustrating omissions from the card. I didn't bet the games, and I kind of wish I did. Louisville, what a bad effort.
I mean, it's tough to see Louisville just demolish Notre Dame and then come out and lose like that.
Yeah.
Game I didn't bet, game I tried to bet, but couldn't get a good number. So I actually got pretty damn lucky because I would have taken Louisville had that come down a little bit, but it didn't. So I ended up staying away, which is very lucky for me. But again, it's numbers, not necessarily sides, which brings me to USC. That was a number I did play because it was going to move. It did move, finished with some closing line value, and got demolished. But yeah, I mean, people don't want to talk about USC. That team is still undefeated in conference. They haven't played anyone good yet, but I mean, everything's still in front of them. They have a non-conference loss to Notre Dame.
Yeah, there's no doubt that they control their own destiny. That's quite a destiny.
Yeah, that defense sucks.
It's quite disturbing. So there's just a lot there, and we'll see. I mean, Missouri, we're gonna get to a lot of these teams in this very video. Let's get to it, friends. I know you're watching. Like, subscribe. You want to be part of this community. We're gonna have 100,000 strong comments. Let's get the energy going. Let's get into it. Here we go. We're starting again. This is the marquee matchup episode. We're not messing around with UTEP, even though we should be. We start with Penn State and Ohio State. Big time matchup. 4-point spread in the shoe. Penn State destroyed UMass. Literally destroyed. 63-0. They didn't take it easy on my boys. They were scoring in ways that I didn't even know you could score. Now they get a real opponent. It's not their first Iowa is whatever, West Virginia is whatever. This is a step up. Do you have a lean in the biggest game of the week?
I took Penn State plus
Yeah.
4.5. I think the
Okay.
number is really important here. Both offenses have been pretty bad. And I think I expected more out of Penn State and Ohio State this year on the offensive side of the ball. Both teams are really strong defensively. They're actually tied for 6th in overall efficiency, good everywhere across the board. Both of them have very good secondaries. Penn State is 7th in the country in coverage. Ohio State is 6th. Ohio State also a top 10 run defense unit, but Penn State has an awesome pass rush where they rank 3rd. So 2 elite defenses going up against questionable signal callers. Drew Aller has a 64.8% completion, 6.9 yards per attempt. They're not asking him to do anything. All they do is dink and dunk their way down the field. 3 big-time throws, 1 turnover-worthy play. The ratio is awesome, but it speaks to the offense neutering Drew Aller. And I mean, I don't think they have great receivers to begin with, so this makes sense. Offensive line here is very good, 16% pressure rate. They're very good up front, creating lanes for Singleton and Katron Allen, which I think is how they want to play. And that does give them a slight edge because I think this offensive line is better than Ohio State's, who hasn't been tested a lot. And when they have played good competition, it hasn't always looked pretty. The Ohio State offensive line, 18% pressure rate on the year. Against Notre Dame, they allowed 15 quarterback pressures. That doesn't include things like blitzes. These are just normal pass sets. Obviously, when you include blitzes, these numbers can get skewed. So it's just what the offensive line is allowing in straight sets. And I mean, they replaced 3 offensive linemen, including both tackles this offseason. When you're not facing Indiana, Western Kentucky, and Purdue, and you face Notre Dame, a real opponent, these numbers can start to look a little different. So that's what I tried to isolate with the Ohio State offensive line. So little microwaves to Penn State there on defense against the offensive line. I don't know if Ibuka is going to come back, which is big for this team. Trevion Henderson missed their last game. He's the running back. Chip Trainum got hurt in the game. I like Dallin Hayden, so I don't really think there's much of a drop-off. But you also lost your top corner, Denzel Burke, in the game. Who knows if he returns for Ohio State? Penn State's healthier. There's a couple edges their direction. If you can find this beyond 3, I think it's worth considering. I took the 4.5, which is a better number and one that I'm happy with now. Obviously, you've got home field for Ohio State. But I think these are almost evenly matched teams, with Penn State being slightly better on defense, slightly, and slightly better on the offensive line. So I give them a slight edge.
I do as well. 4.5s are still out there. Looking at Odd Chopper right now, you can quickly and easily find the number for you at any book. I think that Penn State, I've said this, I think there's a chance that Penn State makes the playoff. I really like this team. Do have a little future on them as well. Evenly matched team. They're going on the road. If Penn State was at home, certainly, of course, we wouldn't see a 4.5 point spread. That just wouldn't be happening for obvious reasons. I think that Aller will play good enough, lean on that run game. Competitive game. The number is important, but if you even at 4, I'm fine with it. First bet on the board.
Last thing I'll say about Ohio State is like their game against Purdue. Purdue, how many field goals did they miss?
Purdue is bad. Way worse than I thought.
Purdue they were on the 1 yard line, couldn't punch it in, kicked a field goal from the 1 and missed, along with 2 other missed field goals. Like Purdue left a ton of points on the board. So I mean, I also think like some of their box scores, Ohio State that is don't tell the whole story of their season.
Yeah, Maryland had them in somewhat serious trouble in Columbus. Like
they should have lost in Notre Dame.
Like, oh well, yeah. I mean, that's also true. And Penn State, again, Penn State hasn't played a Notre Dame just yet. I don't think I was a real opponent.
They beat our wagon though.
They did beat our wagon, but that was in week 1 and it was at home.
Yeah.
So I hear you, but give me the 4.5. All right. We go to SEC, a game that we always see, and I believe it's always the 3rd Saturday in October. I'm almost positive about that, and that would be Tennessee and Alabama. Another big-time matchup here. Quietly, Tennessee's just been doing their thing. They got to go to Tuscaloosa, though. You're talking about a 9-point spread, a total that's pretty low. What angle do you see here?
Tennessee has a ton of injuries that I want to bring up first and foremost. They haven't had their linebacker, Keenan Peely. Christian Charles, safety, he's been out. Both of these guys have been out for a while now. But they just lost Omar Norman Lott, defensive tackle. Warren Burrell, a corner, he missed their last game. On offense, they don't have Brew McCoy. He's done for the year. Andre Karich, their left guard, he missed last game. Gerald Mincy, their tackle, he got an injury in game. This could be an absolutely brutal mismatch in favor of Alabama, who has an elite pass rush. We're talking about the 7th ranked pass rush in the country going up a makeshift Tennessee offensive line. And this unit has been decent. They were already 90th in pass blocking. Where they've been better is on the run. If we remove these two players, Joe Milton is going to be running for his life. And Joe Milton hasn't exactly had a great season. 61.5% completion, 6.9 yards per attempt, same amount of big-time throws as turnover-worthy plays. He already lost his number one receiver, and now he could potentially be down 2 offensive linemen. This Alabama defense should absolutely feast against Joe Milton here. Then on the other side, I've been really surprised by Tennessee's defense. And initially, I thought this was a matter of Tennessee didn't really have the best data points. It's pretty easy for your defense to look great against Virginia, Austin Peay, UTSA with Eddie Lee Marburger. But now they've started to play a couple competent teams. They have wins over South Carolina, Texas A&M. Both those teams were held to 20 points or fewer. So I'm starting to have more confidence in these Tennessee defensive metrics. They've got a couple injuries. That should at least be noted. But now you're stacking up a strong pass rush. 6th in the country is Tennessee against that Alabama offensive line, which has shown a lot of cracks. They're 72nd. Their pressure rate's over 30%. Some of this is on Joe Milton holding the ball for a long time. But this is another mismatch. Sorry?
Jalen Milroe. Yeah.
Jalen Milroe, sorry.
Yeah.
I said Joe Milton.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, same thing. Both offensive lines suck. Both quarterbacks under pressure. So insert whatever name you want. It's the same mismatch. You have Alabama's pass rush at 7th, Tennessee's at 6th. I think the under is the best play here. Neither team plays. I guess Alabama plays slower than Tennessee for sure. But I think these defenses are going to find success against poor quarterback play on the other side and poor offensive line play.
Did you take anything away? Last question, then we can move on. Anything away from a pretty lackluster showing by Alabama last week against Arkansas? You know, that game got eerily close late.
Yeah, they slaughtered them in the first half and then stopped trying.
Yes, they did. It was not good.
KJ Jefferson had some hero plays. I think if you just tackle, Alabama smashes Arkansas. I still like Milroe. I think he's a good signal caller. His efficiency metrics are solid, but this is a big mismatch on both sides. Tennessee's D-line should have no problem getting past Bama's O-line, who is still dealing with some injuries too. Like, guys keep coming on and off the field for them. Darian Dalcourt missed their last game. I don't know if he's back. I mean, they don't trust Caden Proctor. He's rotating snaps. Their tight end, CJ Dippre, got hurt, so now you lost a guy that potentially could come in and block for you. Alabama's a couple injuries on defense, too. They lost Tresman Marshall last game, and Malachi Moore didn't play, so watch the status of these guys. But, I mean, the strength of Bama's matchup here is up front on their D-line, so I still think the under can come through. Right now, the number I took for this was 48.
Yeah, there's 47.5 out there, so right in the ballpark. I do like Alabama in the game. I'm not sure I want to lay 9. It's coming down a little bit. Maybe a parlay piece in the money line world is still a little juicy, though, so keep an eye on that. I like this. We're bouncing from conference to conference. We're going to the ACC. Duke and Florida State. Florida State is still certainly in control of their own destiny because they have answered every challenge, and now they get Duke coming into their building. 14-point spread. What's going on with Duke? You know, Riley Leonard and that situation. Talk to me about this matchup and what angle we might want to play.
Yeah, it looks like Riley Leonard might play here. I think we'll get more concrete news later in the week, but Duke should not be a 14-point underdog if he's fully healthy. So the whole question to me is, how much do we trust Riley Leonard's health status? Currently, I would rather wait on that because it hasn't really budged. You can probably play this and get a better number later in the week if he doesn't play. And then if he does, you can hop on a good number at the time. But I still think under 49 is interesting. Florida State, 86th in pace. Duke is 112th. Both of these defenses have been very good this year. Duke is 15th in the country in total defense. And they have a lot of really tough games. Limited Clemson to 7 points. Notre Dame, That was a 21-14 game, so very low-scoring game environment. NC State, they held to 3 last week, and Duke had their backup quarterback under center. This team is second in pass coverage, which is important against Florida State, who will throw the ball over top of you with Johnny Wilson and Keon Coleman. That's a very difficult duo to stop, and they probably have some degree of success, but still a hard matchup for Florida State against a very good Duke defense. Then on the other state, Florida State has made jumps. You know, they faced LSU in week 1, who didn't end up with a lot of points, but had a ton of yardage and just missed on the goal line a couple times. But this defense has really improved since then. They're 33rd in the country, 23rd in coverage, 62nd against the run. And plus, Duke's offense without Riley Leonard is questionable. They're 47th in total offensive efficiency. The O-line has been pretty bad this year, and they replaced a couple starters, so this isn't too surprising. 72nd in pass blocking, 88th in run blocking. It's partially what got Riley Leonard hurt initially at the end of that Notre Dame game. But all this to say, I think the defenses has success. The pace is slow, and the matchup for Florida State against Duke secondary is tough. So I think this comes in under, and then I'm going to wait on the Duke side. I will likely play 14 if we get solid Riley Leonard news.
I have no interest, in a side just now. I think you can wait. It is sitting 14. Under is interesting. I did not look at that. Okay, I can do that. Duke really does slow it, and they have some data points that lead you kind of down that path. So, okay, I'm going to make a mental note. That was not on my card. Might tail you on that. I need to tail you on a couple of these. I should have tailed you on UNLV. We'll talk about that on Thursday. Nevada is the worst team in the country. Anyway. They really are. All right, Pac-12 time. Utah and USC. You did mention earlier in the show that, listen, the true story here, USC, they still have some opportunities. But can they survive these type of tests? So talk to me about where you think they're at and what's going on. Game, I believe, is off. Oh, no, here we go. It's right here. It's a 6.5-point spread.
USC's taking a ton of money. And this is a big game, so we need to talk about it. But I was hoping you would have a more solid take than me. Because as you know, Utah's been banished for me. I'm not betting a Utah game until we get concrete Cam Rising news. Don't care what happens. This team is awful without him. And you could make the argument he's the most valuable player to the spread in the country because their quarterback play is horrific without him. USC also deserves banishment after their defensive showing the last 2 weeks. So I don't have a lot of interest in taking USC side. We've seen them play horrific football against quarterbacks on par with Nate Johnson and Bryson Barnes. I don't know. USC's been getting a ton of love in the public. I know a lot of people look at like revenge spots and stuff, and they're coming off an L. Stuff that's impossible to quantify that I don't typically look at. But yeah, do you have a take here? I'm not betting this game. I
have navigated, and maybe I've just been fortunate. I have successfully navigated the Utah waters nicely this year. I've picked on them in the right spots. I've avoided them in the right spots. I would bet USC at 6.5 before I bet Utah even at 7. I do think that USC will look better at home. I'm not sure I want to do anything with this game. The Rising news is out there. USC, again, you go into South Bend and you look awful. Okay. Let's not forget they almost lost to, and Arizona's not bad. I'm not saying Arizona's terrible, but what are you doing? What is going on with your team? Like you almost lost to Arizona as well. I'm very concerned with USC. I think there's a very real chance they're just not that good.
Yeah, I can't believe you've navigated these Utah waters. Like
I know. That is very fortunate.
You should be given the keys to the city. That is an unbelievable feat. I think I'm 0-3 betting Utah games this year. They have 3 wins where they lost the yards per play. Florida, more yards per play. Baylor, more yards per play. UCLA, more yards per play. This team should be 2-4. Maybe 1-5. I don't know. This team sucks.
Yeah, they're not good. I was able to get, again, going back to the Florida game, certainly the kill spot was against Oregon State. Again, Oregon State at home, I think at this point, I'm going to declare them my wagon. I love that team, particularly in Corvallis. But we'll see. This is an ugly game. I think there are better games out there. I'm not sure I would touch this unless I really, really had to. But you know what? Honestly, it's perfect time to mention this. If you want to dabble on a game like this, what the best time to do it? It's with bonus bets. I know you love bonus bets. I know if you were in New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, Iowa, Kentucky, or Colorado, you would be advocating for Bet 365. You are not. I'm sorry, friend. But if I just mentioned your state again, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, Iowa, Kentucky, or Colorado, listen up because I got money for you. Straight cash, homie. It's going to be fantastic. Bet 5, get 150 in bonus bets. Fantastic opportunity for those states. It's very simple. The link is below. You sign up, you bet 5. If you win, you get 150 in bonus bets. If you lose, you get 150 in bonus bets. It's actually 365 only in Kentucky. They have the extra awesome deal. But those 6 states, just an absolutely fantastic. I've said fantastic 3 times now. It's a good opportunity to really pad the bankroll. Take advantage of that. Like Randy Moss said, get that money. You got to be 21 plus. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. But again, shout out to Bet365. No joke, all kidding aside. If you're in one of those 6 states, get the extra money for your bankroll. You can use it on parlays. You can use it to be aggressive. You can bet a couple extra games. And you get access to Bet365, which is an awesome book to have regardless. Now, Clemson and Miami. Miami, are they in the banishment zone? Is that a fair statement to say, or are they still a team that we need to talk about?
They're getting close,
Okay,
but I
that's
still
fair.
think this is a really good team that we can squeeze value out of. So I don't want to banish them because they've had really solid efficiency metrics, and people will look at some of their recent box scores. Against North Carolina, they had 4 turnovers. 2 of them were fumbles. One of them was a Henry Parrish fumble as he was crossing the goal line. At the UNC 1-yard line, that's a touchdown that now comes off the board. They had a fumble at the North Carolina 41. Then in the second half, things got out of control when they were behind. Van Dyke threw an interception at his own 14. That was an immediate North Carolina touchdown. So, I mean, we're talking about 14 points worth of – it's a swing on just turnovers alone in this game. You look at yards, it was almost dead even. North Carolina had a slight edge, but, I mean, even yards per pass, North Carolina 8.3. Miami was at 8.0. This game was very evenly matched. And then, I mean, the previous game, we talked about this at length last week. Miami, Georgia Tech, it shouldn't have even come down to that. Miami had a turnover at the Georgia Tech 21, interception at their own 25, immediate score, another interception at their own 25, field goal, fumble. I mean, at the end of the game, 2 fumbles. The turnovers have been a disaster for this team, but I go back and I look at Van Dyke. This is some of the, like his last interception occurred on the final drive of the game. So that is what it is. You're going to have those interceptions when you're trying to play from behind and get something done, but he's still completing 70% of his passes, 9.3 yards per attempt, 16 scores, 6 interceptions, 17 big-time throws, 5 turnover-worthy plays. Offensive line is awesome. Defense has played well outside of coverage, where they're 71st. They're top 10 in the country in run defense and pass rush. Clemson can't throw the ball. Like Drake May exploits this matchup far better than Cade Klubnik, and Miami still should have covered that game. Now you're getting more points against Clemson with an inept quarterback in Cade Klubnik. Like, all they do is ride Will Shipley and Phil Maffa. It's another good Miami spot. It's terrifying. What do you think about this Miami team right now?
Yeah, I think it's terrifying. I've been on this Miami bandwagon all year. I really thought that they were a dangerous ACC team this year, and I believe that they are. I am so out on Cristobal. I am sorry. I can't do it with him. I am just not a fan of what he did. I didn't think he was that bad at Oregon. I'm not gonna lie, and I think I was wrong about that because I don't like what he's done with this team. I think Van Dyke is getting a raw deal. He's been awesome. No, I'm no fan of Clemson. I'm no fan of Dabo either. It's just I don't know. I at home you're getting these are key numbers. There's still a 4 out there. Is that where you're
4.
looking? Yeah,
I
4
took
is
4.
out there on DraftKings.
I wasn't going to take this. I thought it was going to come in under 3, but then 4 is a very generous number. Like, Clemson's offense stinks.
Yeah, Clemson's no good.
Miami has a good defense up front. Where they've gotten beat is in coverage, which, again, Cade Klubnik and these bozo receivers can't take advantage of anybody. And I think Miami scores. They've had no problem scoring in any of their matchup. And to your point, Van Dyke's been awesome. I still can't sell Mario Cristobal. Like, he just needs to delegate some stuff. I think you want Mario Cristobal as your coach. He's the best recruiter in the entire country.
Yeah, he should delegate all coaching and just recruit because he is bringing in dudes. I give him that. I don't know. But 4 is a good number. It's
Clemson
scary.
is off a bye. I guess that should be noted. I mean, they should be healthier.
We'll say that this is a weird. That's a hold your nose type game, even though it's a marquee matchup. All right, wagon time. Here we go. We got Missouri and South Carolina. Missouri's just been awesome for us. You have really been on them a lot to great success. 7.5 here back at home. What's the deal? Good, bad?
Yeah, I love Missouri. They keep
Good.
on Sunday nights, they keep lining these games at Missouri within a touchdown over these poor, middling SEC teams, and they clearly have an advantage over them. I mean, how many more data points do we need to make Missouri like a 10-point favorite over South Carolina? Whatever it is, I don't care. I'm going to keep betting them until that happens. Brady Cook's been awesome. I think he's maybe the best signal caller in the SEC outside of Jaden Daniels. I think you could make that argument. 70.5% completion, 9.5 yards per attempt, elite mobility, 14 touchdowns, 3 picks. He's playing behind a great offensive line. They're top 20 in both pass blocking and run blocking. That helps not only Cook, but the run game and Cody Schrader. This defense has been pretty good. I think they've only gotten exposed by the teams you would expect that to happen. It's basically just LSU that's gotten them. LSU gets everybody. They played reasonably well against Kansas State. That was probably their second weakest performance. But even then, Will Howard was at 6.9 yards per attempt. A lot of the yardage Kansas State got was the accumulation over a whole game's worth of plays. It wasn't that they had this elite efficiency. The only team that's done that against them was LSU. And they played last week's game without Enos Rakestraw, their best corner. I think he returns here. He was on the field doing a bunch of stuff before the games, just not in pads. So that would be a huge addition to a coverage unit that ranks 92nd. South Carolina's only way to beat you is throwing over the top. They cannot run the ball. They're down a ton of guys. Antwain Wells, their best receiver, still in a walking boot. Mario Anderson got hurt last game. Their stud transfer running back. Ja'Kai Moore only played 1 snap. He's a guard. Their center, Vershawn Lee, got hurt in the game. Their offensive line already stinks, and now we're adding in a bunch of injuries. I mean, Missouri's going to have a field day up front, pressuring Rattler, who all credit to Rattler. I cannot believe the season he's had with the pressure rate this offensive line is allowing. He's still completing 73% of his passes for 9 yards per attempt without Antwain Wells behind an offensive line that is allowing 36% pressure. I mean, that's awesome, but this team is going to get him killed at some point. Like, if I were Rattler, I would sit out, enter the draft. Like, you are going to die behind this offensive line before the season's over. And this Missouri defense, I think, is better than people are giving it credit for after the LSU debacle. Missouri also the healthier team. I will take them. I think anything around a touchdown's fine. I took 6.5. Honestly, this is probably good through like 10.
It's the wagon of the week.
I think so, man. They keep giving the only time they haven't covered, which was that random pick 6 at the end of the LSU game, a game they should have covered.
Yes, that awesome team. I'm with you here. And you said some things that are hot take, but I think you might be right. Brady Cook, maybe he is the second best quarterback in the SEC.
It might be Rattler, dude. Like, I cannot believe what Rattler's done.
Might be Mertz.
He's been awesome too. The SEC East has sneaky QBs.
Yeah, Ken Seals. As I've told you many a times.
I like Dart too, though.
Last question. Do you think Missouri is a serious challenge to a Bowerless Georgia?
I've been kind of disappointed with Georgia. What week has that game been? Do you know?
I can tell you right now. Let's see. Missouri football schedule. I thought it was mid-November, but I could definitely be wrong. Yeah, it's November 4th. It's in Athens, too.
Yeah, I think you want to catch Georgia as quickly as possible. They got a lot of offensive line injuries. Marius Mims, Truss got hurt in their last game. Obviously, we know about Bowers. Some injuries on defense. But I don't know when those guys will be back, which I would rather catch Georgia immediately. But they could be healthier, so I'm hesitant to say Missouri, is going to be like anything close to. It's probably still like a 14-point spread. I mean,
yeah,
I don't know. I'll likely bet Missouri in the game.
Missouri doesn't play they play South Carolina and then they play Georgia. So
That's
their
pretty
next
good.
game. Yeah. Should be
Missouri's
best.
pretty healthy outside of Rakestraw.
Can't wait to see it. I cannot wait to see it. All right, keep it in the SEC. A game with probably less drama and storylines to it is Auburn and Ole Miss. Anytime you hit the road in the West, it is not easy to win those games. And this is a perfect example. This might be one of the best spots that you can get on the road, and it's still inside a touchdown for Ole Miss. Too much Judkins, too much Dart, too much playmakers, or is Auburn a live dog here?
I think this is really good for Ole Miss catching this spot off the bye. And normally, I don't factor in buys a ton. They are really volatile. Some teams perform excellent off their bye. Some teams sleepwalk after they've spent some time away from football. But I like looking at buys when teams are injured, when teams can use that to get healthier, which Ole Miss hasn't exactly had a full cast of pass catchers all season long. And one thing that happened during the bye is Jordan Watkins did injure his hand. I think he's going to miss this game. But with that said, you had serious injuries to Caden Prescorn and Zachary Franklin. Those guys have now been ramped up. Very good timing for the bye. You had Jalen Knox injured earlier in the season. Good time for the bye. And Trey Harris had knee surgery after week 2. He's been able to work his way back. But, I mean, another really timely bye for this team. You should be fully healthy at wide receiver outside of Jordan Watkins. And that's dangerous against Auburn because Auburn's a team that plays decent defense. The problem is they can't score. And when we've seen them face high-powered offenses, it hasn't looked pretty. LSU just got them for 48. Sleepy Georgia, 27. Texas A&M, an offense I don't particularly love, 27. Ole Miss has an offense that's a little better than Georgia and Texas A&M right now, I believe. The current rendition of Georgia that is without Bowers and behind LSU. So I do think they put up points. Then on the other side, Ole Miss has a defense which is a little weaker in coverage, 85th. Against the run, they're 59th. Against LSU last week, we saw this similar matchup where Auburn needs to run the ball over you. They cannot throw. So when teams are better up front, weaker in the secondary, that's like the perfect matchup to face an Auburn team, which is still platooning quarterbacks and dealing with a ton of injuries. On defense, I mean, this team, Keontae Scott, their safety is still missing time. Mosiah Nasili Kite, their edge, is out for the year. Jalen Simpson, he came back last week, but then right after the game, Hugh Freeze is like, yeah, Jalen Simpson's playing under 100%. I mean, you're playing for nothing. Why is he out there? Austin Keys got hurt, and he hasn't played for a long time with a thumb injury. Like, this team has a ton of injuries on top of being a team that can't throw. I like Ole Miss within a touchdown, even though it's on the road. I think the bye helps them a ton with some of the health stuff.
I tend to agree. So, like, I have trouble with buys as well. But if there's one conference and one side of a conference where I think a buy is extremely valuable, it's the SEC West. Like, when you're playing opponent after opponent in a competitive, tough, aggressive game like that, a buy is huge. Look at Ole Miss's schedule. Look at what they had just been through. A great time for a buy. Auburn's no good. 6.5, sixes are out there. I'm with you. This one is going to be on my card. I know it's trappy with a little road favorite, but I think Ole Miss is just better. Basically everywhere. I will roll with them. I will join you on that bandwagon. What the hell's going on with UCF? They're the next game. That's a genuine question. I honestly don't know what to make of this team. They've got Oklahoma, 65-point total, a lot healthier. It's almost 3 touchdowns. Is that too much, or is Oklahoma just going to simply destroy this team?
I think it's too much. I bet UCF at plus 19.5.
Okay.
And we're not in any key numbers. So 19, 18.5, whatever you can find, I think is fine. John Rhys Plumlee is the biggest story for this game. A lot of my friends had conspiracy theories about John Rhys Plumlee's health last game, saying essentially that he quit, and had he been playing better, he would have played through that whole game, which is interesting because I watched the UCF press conference after the game, and John Rhys Plumlee said he's 100%. Either that's not true or you quit on your team. So I don't know what the case is, but they've now had a bye. So presuming that he wasn't 100% healthy, which is my take, he should be much closer to 100% now. He said 2 weeks to get it right. So he'll play in this game. And I think we are still looking at an Oklahoma team, which is a little overvalued coming off the Texas win. Awesome win. I bet them in that game, and I think they're pretty close talent-wise to Texas. but they still allowed more yards per play to the Longhorns than they generated. Where Texas shot themselves in the foot was Quinn Ewers, of course, his turnovers, which has gotten this team multiple times. But they have a bunch of injuries too. They just lost their best receiver, Angelo Anthony, for the year. Javante Barnes, their running back, hasn't played recently. McCade Medower, their offensive lineman, he was like carted off. Apparently he's going to miss some time, but be back later this year. So that's not a good loss. And then on defense, Justin Harrington tore his ACL a while ago. He's a safety. And Connie Walker, their corner, he's missed multiple games in a row now. So you have a ton of injuries on the Oklahoma side. UCF, with Rise Plumlee coming back, they should be the healthier team. The only questions I have are on defense for UCF. Walter Yates missed their last game, linebacker. Braden Marshall, a corner. William Wells, a safety. Not all these guys are full-time players, but they have been missing time. So that's at least a concern. But then looking at UCF's games, they've lost a couple games that I think they should have won. Against Kansas State, they end up losing 44-31. They average more yards per play. Just a bunch of crazy noise in that game. Fumbled at the Kansas State 43. Interception at their own 42. They missed a field goal. They had turnover on downs within their own territory twice in that game, which led to touchdowns. And then you look at, the Baylor game. They lost that game. UCF 7.7 yards per play. Baylor 5.8. Like, this UCF team should probably have one loss, that loss being to Kansas in a game where John Rice Plumlee couldn't play the whole time. I mean, there's a very real case to be made that this team should be undefeated heading into Oklahoma. Their defense is playing pretty well. They're better up front, which is scary against Oklahoma, of course. But then this offense is solid too. I think you can get enough to cover a 19.5. Like, I don't think this team is live to win outright by any means, but we've seen Oklahoma give up some production too, primarily against Texas. I think Plumlee and this UCF team can keep it close enough to cover what is now a 3-score spread.
Any interest in over 65?
I looked at that, made me a little worried, but I think it's worth considering.
Okay. That would be where I would lean as well. I do think that UCF can keep it respectable, but even if they give you 25-ish to 30, like, I think Oklahoma's going to score in the 40s in this game. I really do. So that'll be a good opportunity, I think, to push over that, but both things can work. UCF and the over potentially can get there. Certainly
both teams top 30 in pace.
Yeah, they move. They can definitely get up and down. I think there'll be big explosive chunk plays in that game. All right. One of my, like I said, I didn't have a great week 7, and one of my real dumb ads was Washington State. I added them to the card late, kind of fell in love with that spot. You're back at home. Good opportunity. They score first. They miss they go for 2. They don't get it. It's 6-0. And then I look and it was 46-6. It was like, I don't understand. Arizona dismantled Washington State. And now Washington State has to go probably into the worst spot that you could be in. You're at Oregon off the loss for the Ducks. It's a lot of points, though. Is this too much, or is this not even enough?
I think Oregon names their score, which is not something I particularly like betting. I have more interest in the total. But I think we had an initial read on Washington State that was correct. I think I just personally adjusted too much when they beat Wisconsin and Oregon State. They ran up the score in Oregon State early and then ended up almost losing. Oregon State came back, only lost by 3. Wisconsin is horrible. So, I mean, the win over Wisconsin has not aged particularly well. I remember talking to you in the preseason when we were betting the under for Washington State. We're like, they're going to lose some of these middling games, like Arizona State, Colorado. These are teams that could clip Washington State, and they just got slaughtered by one of them. Not to mention they lost to UCLA, who's doing some things well, especially on defense in the run game, but definitely has some strides to be made.
Oh, yeah.
But I think the over seems like a better play to me. Sorry, you were going to say something?
No, I'm sorry. Dante Moore, I could do a whole show on what UCLA is doing. These turnovers.
They're giving their freshmen time to learn. It's growing pains. But the over is interesting to me. Washington State really fast, 25th in pace. Oregon 62nd. Oregon's going to score as many times as they want here. This Washington State defense can't defend the run. They're 109th. Bucky Irving just ran for over 100 yards against Washington's defense. Oregon's 9th in the country in total offensive efficiency, 1st in pass blocking. Bo Nix is having an awesome season, and this team is fairly healthy on offense. It's defense where they had some injuries that I think really pushed me towards the over here. Brian Addison, one of their safeties, he missed the last game. And then we saw Kyrie Jackson and Jaleel Florence get injured in game. Early reports are positive on these guys, but we'll see. That's 3 players in your secondary. We know what Washington State is going to try to do, which is throw the ball over top of you. They've had a horrific offensive line, though, which scares me. Luckily, Oregon's worst unit on defense is pass rush, 59th there. I mean, worst teams have gotten home against this Washington State offensive line, so I'm still worried. But what do we need Washington State to do to get the over in this game? Score 14 points?
Yeah, 17.
Oregon's putting up 40.
Yeah, I agree. I like this. This is a good spot that you found for sure. Oregon's going to do all the heavy lifting. Washington State's going to throw a ton. Yeah, I'm fine. Cam Ward is out there fighting behind a tough situation for him, but I hear you there. I will join you on that over. Yeah, did you see, by the way, UCLA, they brought in, I think it was like the Kent State, the MAC quarterback.
He got hurt immediately.
Yeah, well, he was running. Again, I was watching that game intently, just running wild out there. Very, very disturbing stuff. Anyway, TCU and Kansas State. Let's see what we've got here in the Big 12. 6.5-point spread. It's in Manhattan. I haven't seen a lot of TCU. I know Morris was hurt. Like, what's going on with these teams? Inside a touchdown? Are we back in the home team? Or are we going elsewhere?
I might play TCU. I've just been waiting because Kansas State has taken a lot of money. But man, I don't think people have watched TCU since the Colorado game. Like this
team haven't.
This team's played really well. And honestly, they should probably have one loss this year. More yards per play than Colorado. The only turnover in that game resulted in immediate points for Colorado. So, I mean, hyper close game. It was close in terms of yards per play, but TCU actually had the lead. West Virginia, another game they lost. TCU averaged more yards per play. And then Iowa State. Even when Chandler Morris went down, they still averaged more yards per play than Iowa State. So, I mean, these are close games. And I think if you play them all out, like 1,000 times, TCU wins them more often than not. It's just unfortunate that they've had 3 losses in games where they outgained their opponent on a per play basis. Last week, we saw Josh Hoover come in for Chandler Morris, played awesome in that game. Sometimes we see this with new signal callers, no film on them. They can ball out and then teams adjust. But that was against BYU, a weak team. They'll face at least a tougher defense here in Kansas State. Still a unit I'm not impressed with. They lost a bunch of players this offseason, especially in their secondary. They're currently 86th in total defense, 87th in coverage, and 102nd against the run. That's going to be a problem against Amani Bailey there too. But I'm interested in the over. Kansas State also made a quarterback change. Avery Johnson played a ton in that game. They still platooned him and Will Howard, which seems to be the plan moving forward. Avery Johnson, electric with his legs, and then Will Howard's going to handle more of just the pure passing stuff. The reason I think TCU might be the play overall is their defense has quietly been really good. 12th in total defensive efficiency, 14th in coverage. They had like one sleepy spot against Colorado, but otherwise they've been awesome. They dominated Houston. They dominated SMU. West Virginia can't really throw the ball, but they handled Rocco Becht for Iowa State, who's actually shown some life in recent games. And they just demolished Keaton Slovis. We have 5 pretty decent data points following the Colorado collapse. I think this defense is better than people are thinking too. I have TCU power rated higher than Kansas State. Even if you give Kansas State home field, I think this should be closer. I'm still going to wait on it just with Kansas State taking money. But I think we can actually look at the TCU side. And then as far as the total goes, I still don't think people are adjusting for Kansas State's pace. They're 54th in pace and TCU's 5th. Both these defenses have questions, more so on the Kansas State side for sure. So I think backup Josh Hoover continues to score, and Kansas State does it enough to get this over the total. I took over 57 already. I'm probably going to take TCU's points, but we'll see where this ends up.
If it hits 7, are you comfortable firing on TCU?
Yeah, it's been bouncing around a lot. So it was 7.5 initially. It came down. Now it's coming back up. If it hits 7 again, I'm going to take TCU.
Interesting spot. I actually I'm going to make time for that game because I have not seen TCU with that rebuild defense. Okay.
I mean, they have a lot of good players. They only lost Hodges Tomlinson, and last year their secondary was electric. So it was really weird to see Colorado demolish them. I never thought that was what they would be this year.
No, that data point probably anytime you get an outlier data point early in the year like that, like week 1, week 0, it can screw everything up. And that's why sometimes you gotta stay strong in those convictions, or you can just ride a team into the poorhouse, which I've been known to do more than once in my life. But let me
Same.
just say this before we get to maybe my favorite game on the slate. I do always like to mention what we've got going on here at Odd Chopper. I use the odd screen just because it's super simple to show, quick, easy. You can see your games, sort, filter by all these tabs. That's good stuff. That's always available. That's free, but I want to make sure you guys know about really the market-based approach that Odd Chopper uses. It's quick, it's easy, it's profitable, it's for every single sport. We ingest all that data. We find the inefficient lines. It moves in real time. We give you ratings. There's a bankroll tracker. It will tell you the optimal amount to bet on all these things, and it's completely customizable. You could say, okay, well, I don't have all these books. I only have 2 books. I want to just see the bets from there. No problem. You click that. Actually, you know what? I only want to know about a couple things here. I just want 2 sports. No problem. It updates again in real time to anything you want. It's got all sorts of integrations to all these books to make you a better bettor. If you are interested in taking it to the next level, sign up. The link is below. Test this out. You'll save some money while you do it. You get inside the ropes. I really believe that'll be an integral part of your process. And if it isn't, you checked it out. You see what we've got, and you're better for it. So just shout out to that, the great work that they've done. Make sure you do it there. If you're in a state that has player props as well, I know Matt drops his prize picks. That is an opportunity. I would kill for player props in New York. That is a very profitable space, and Odd Chopper has you covered for that. But you know what else is going to be profitable? West Virginia against Oklahoma State. I really, really think that this is a spot. I'm hoping we got to be riding our team, right?
I need you to talk me into this. This is the side I want to bet. I want to bet West Virginia, have them power rated significantly ahead of Oklahoma State. But I have this worry that the quarterback roulette they were playing at the beginning of the year with Wrangle and all these bozos over Alan Bowman has skewed some of my metrics, because Bowman's been pretty good. He's definitely not anything like Caleb Williams or something like that, but he's been orchestrating the offense, and it's looked a lot better since they've just committed to him. I mean, they had a win over Kansas last week, Kansas State the week before. There's some noise here. Kansas averaged almost a full yard per play over what Oklahoma State was able to put on the field. Kansas just had the 2 turnovers, so they end up with an L, but they should have won that game. And then Kansas State, Oklahoma State was very close. But, I mean, am I looking too much into the quarterback change? I don't know.
I'm going to say yes. So
that could be the case. I'm willing to say that is the case.
So I bet Kansas last week. I watched the game from start to finish.
Same.
Again, first of all, Kansas missed 3 extra points. Some of them were trying to go for 2. Screwed that game up. 2, and I do think this matters. The last 2 games you mentioned, Kansas State and Kansas, both in Stillwater. Oklahoma State was home in both of those games. I do think that plays a major impact. Ollie Gordon, they've had some weapons. There's no doubt that Oklahoma State has found something. They have a good pass rush. I'm not impressed with the rest of that defense at all. I think that West Virginia has serious advantages. And then let's look at the other side. You say, okay, West Virginia. Yeah, they lost the game to Houston. Did you see the end of that game? I mean, they lost on a Hail Mary with 10 seconds left after making a crazy comeback. I think this sets up perfectly for West Virginia. Oklahoma State, I am sticking with my initial read. This team is garbage. They played better lately. West Virginia is the better side here. I will lay the points.
Yeah, I had a million texts when I went to bed at halftime of that West Virginia game. The first round of text was, and I wasn't awake for any of these. It was West Virginia's a wagon. West Virginia is the wagon of the year. And then after that, it was what did I just watch? What happened to our wagon of the year? But anyway, to speak to some of the matchups you highlighted, Oklahoma's pass rush is their best unit on defense, but West Virginia's 13th in pass blocking. That should neutralize that advantage. Then how you beat West Virginia's over the top, they're 119th in coverage. Oklahoma State's been winning games through Ollie Gordon. Bowman's done enough, but I mean, we're still talking about a guy that has a 56% completion for 6.2 yards per attempt, more turnover-worthy plays than big-time throws, almost identical touchdown to interception ratio, and he can't run. So I think I might just bet West Virginia right now. You've kind of squashed my concerns.
I'm just, listen, could I be wrong? It wouldn't be the first time. I just look at this. I think that Oklahoma State has made strides. There's no doubt about that. South Alabama smoked them earlier in the year, things like that. I think they've corrected it. Now they have to hit the road against a competent team. I do not think this stylistically is a good matchup. I don't think that Oklahoma State is that much better than they really have shown. 3.5 is fine. Yeah, I'd like 3, but I would play this up inside a touchdown. That's really where I'm at with this game. Give me West Virginia. I'm going to stick with our boys. All right, we got a couple games. Them. Yeah, come on, join the team. All right, we got a couple more games left, and then we will do a recap. And again, if you guys want to see it, let us know in the comments. Any games, we're going to do our bonus episode on Thursday. Random games, shady games. Just tweet us, Matt_Gajewski at JazzRazDFS. Let us know in the comments. The support means everything. We want to do more and more college football if you guys want it. And that's the best way to do it, is to share the show, rate and review on podcasts. Just do everything to help us out. It is so appreciated. You guys have been unbelievable all year. Now, Texas, Houston, I got nothing to say here. It's a 23-point spread on the road. Don't like this Houston team, but are we backing this Houston team?
I'm debating playing Texas.
Ooh, okay. That I could get on board with.
I don't buy this Houston team. They should have lost to West Virginia. Yeah, man. I mean, this team has a bad defense, 74th in coverage, 78th overall. They can't rush the passer. If you're not rushing Quinn Ewers and forcing him to make bad decisions, how does Texas not put up 50 points in this game? Coming off the loss to Oklahoma, coming off the bye, all of their injured players have benefited from the bye. So in some capacity, they'd been missing Cole Hudson on the offensive line. Jake Majors, their center. Jatavian Sanders, their tight end. Ryan Watts, one of their best corners. They all practiced on Monday, and it looks like they're all going to be back in this game. Texas plays awesome defense. They're 19th in pass rush. You have the 23rd ranked run defense. Coverage only concerned 68th, but you just played Oklahoma. Your numbers are going to look a little skewed in some of those metrics. I think 24 is fine here. Texas is the side I lean. If you can find like a 23, that's where I would probably hit this. Right now, I'm going to wait a little bit and see if I can't get a better number on Texas, or maybe the over at 60.5. Again, their one weakness is in their secondary. Donovan Smith can exploit that. But then the one concern I had with that was Matthew Golden went down for the last game that Houston played against West Virginia. That's a big concern for them if he's out. So it's like a little hesitancy for me on this entire game, but Texas is the side I was looking at.
There is a 23 at -110 out there. So
that's a good number.
That's a good number. Yeah. And I'm fine with that over as well, because I still think Houston can give you, 17 to 20, like something like that. That'll set the table for Texas to really lay it on them. Maybe I'll look at this. I did not bet this game just yet, but it's only Tuesday. It could wind up on the card. Not sure I'm going to bet this rivalry game, and I'm talking about Michigan and Michigan State. Michigan State was another team that screwed me last week, even though they're just terrible. Rutgers, the game was in the swamp. They were down by 1 million, and then they came back, won, and didn't cover. Now Michigan State goes home. But, is there really any serious chance that we see the classic throw the records out the window rivalry situation here, or does Michigan do what Michigan does, which is just steamroll them?
I would be shocked if Michigan State puts up a fight. This is the healthiest Michigan's been all year. They've had some defenders out of games previously, like Will Johnson's missed some time. He's one of their best corners. Everybody's back. The only guy that missed was Khalil Mullings. He's their third-string running back, had no in-game injuries. This is a full-strength team. J.J. McCarthy is playing some of the best football of his career. 78% completion, 10.6 yards per attempt. He's never turning the ball over. He's averaging 5.3 yards per carry. Offensive line is doing amazing. They're 24th in pass blocking, 4th in run blocking. This team has jumped all the way to 2nd in defensive efficiency with some of the guys they returned. And Michigan State is a complete disaster.
Oof.
They just allowed 148 rushing yards to Rutgers' Kyle Monangai, a game they should have got slaughtered. And some of their metrics are skewed. I mean, they allowed 161 passing yards to Iowa. Well, Cade McNamara was at 9.2 yards per attempt prior to getting injured. That's Iowa's passing attack. Tagovailoa got him. Penix got him. That'll happen. I don't fear this Michigan State defense whatsoever. They're 93rd, and this team is 101st in offensive efficiency. The only thing here is potential look-aheads for Michigan. Luckily, they don't have a tough game till November, so I do not think this is a look-ahead spot. Michigan wins this game by 35 if they want to. I haven't bet this yet. I was going to see what you thought and if you had any pushback, but otherwise, I'm just going to lay the points with Michigan. They should slaughter this team. They haven't given up more than 10 points all year.
Yeah, the thing I like about Michigan, first of all, they kind of do this every week, and two, the way they play, I just view them as kind of like a low variance team, and I just like that. Like they really frustrate you on defense. They've got the backs. JJ's not going to turn the ball over. Even last week, I looked at that game. Not that I had any real position in it, and it's like, like man, Michigan is sleepwalking. They give up a touchdown, and that's it. Then they just turn it on, no problems. Just touchdown after touchdown after touchdown. Super efficient. Yes, at home, obviously, at times it's a little different, but in a rivalry game, I think that might actually be a good thing because it's just like, are they really going to be looking ahead to Michigan State? They're going to want to lay it on them, I would assume.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have a tough game next week, and they don't have a tough game till November.
They don't have tough games. They got two tough games.
Yeah, two tough games. They're both at the end. Maryland smashing between them. The only thing I'll say here for strategy is Michigan State has found some resistance at 24.5.
Yes.
I think you can find some 24s out there, or if they're not available, if you wait, they likely come back. I'm seeing a lot of Michigan State plus 24.5 at minus 120 on the juice. I think you can find the better number in 24, maybe right now, or if you wait.
Yeah, I'm going to wait on this, but yeah, Michigan really should just find a way here. All right, 2 games left. Then we'll get to our best bets. Again, appreciate everybody. Make sure you take advantage of the links, all that good stuff. This is a weird game. This was one of maybe my worst bet of the week last week. Was Cincinnati. Cincinnati might just be terrible. I might have screwed that up. I tried to back them and it didn't work at all. Now they got Baylor, and Cincy is a slight home favorite. Am I overreacting, or is Cincy actually just bad?
I think they're bad.
Okay,
but
great.
This is 2 bad teams colliding, which sometimes makes for really exciting football. The over-under is 52 with the under taking money. I think I'm going to play a greasy over a little later in the week. Ooh. Baylor's 40th in pace. Cincinnati's 50th. 2 teams that are well above average in terms of the style they play, seconds per play. That suits an over. And then both of these defenses are so bad. Cincinnati, 107th in total defense, 132nd in coverage. They have Blake Shapen back on the other side. That's helped them score a lot of points. Baylor, that is. Meanwhile, the Baylor defense is 128th in defensive efficiency. They're 125th against the run, 111th in pass rush, and 122nd in pass coverage. For everything Cincinnati's done poorly, their offense still ranks 55th in efficiency. They've gotten really good play out of the run game, especially Emory Jones, Montgomery, and Corey Kiner. And situationally, they've gotten good pass production from Henderson, Braden Smith, D. Wiggins. This defense on Baylor is just so bad. And then I think Baylor's offensive power ratings are a little lower because of the injury to Shapen earlier this year. Sawyer Robertson was just incompetent back there. But Shapen's played well, and he's averaging 9 yards per pass attempt. So I think this is a greasy over. There's not really any data points that indicate to me the under should be taking money here. Pace. 2 decent offenses, 2 horrific defenses. I'm shocked by this number.
Yeah, 51.5 on my screen right now. Very greasy. But you mentioned it. Some real issues on the defensive side of the ball for these teams. Competitive spread. Not bad. Not bad. How low are you willing to wait? I mean, do you think it's going to get to like 50, or like if it hits 51-ish, you're good?
I am not sure. I would bet this at the current number. The only reason I haven't is
why would you? No rush.
If it comes back up, I'll just bet it at the 52 number. I show value on that still, but yeah, to your point, there's no reason to bet it now unless you think it comes back up immediately and goes beyond that.
Fair enough. All right, the last game, Texas Tech and BYU. Another, again, the Big 12. They've got some very, very interesting games here. Round us out before we do our recap.
Baron Morton got hurt in the last game for Texas Tech. Really wanted to play them against BYU, who's been a corpse. Only problem is BYU is going to be at home. We did not get a lot of good play out of this backup for Baron Morton. So this is one you wait and see. Baron Morton apparently is a game time decision. If he plays, I want to play Texas Tech against this bad BYU defense, who's 104th total defense, 116th in coverage. But this is just a wait and see. Did you ever read on this game?
Same thing for you. I make a couple notes before the show, and this is a game that I almost, no joke, this game belongs in both shows. It's the worst of the best games, and it might be the best of the worst games. Like, they could have made an appearance on the Thursday show. I just like some clarity on the same situations you're waiting for. Texas Tech is the side that I'm interested in. Another spot where you could talk me into an over, a greasy over at that. But yeah, you have any interest in maybe that total over?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too. Texas Tech 7th in pace, BYU 67th. And we talked about the poor BYU defense. It's not like Texas Tech is much better. 95th. No. They're terrible against the run, 105th. Not great against the pass, 79th. I think both offenses do have success here, and pace lines up. As long as we get Baron Morton news, I will probably play the over.
Yeah, I'm on board with that potentially as well with that over. I think that's a real good spot. Okay, here we go. We've talked about a bunch of games, and again, we're going to have even more for you. I will say, maybe you're in New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, Iowa, Kentucky, and Colorado, my 6 states. That means you get the $150 from Bet365. Link is below. Maybe you're not. Maybe you're just saying, all right, I got a couple bucks in my pocket. I say it to you every time. Where are you going? Favorite bets on the board. Round us out. Hit the people with the answers.
Favorite is Missouri against South Carolina. I took this at 6.5. I truly do not care if the number is anything below 10. Missouri, I think they've emerged quickly as the second best team in the SEC East. In South Carolina, injuries along the offensive line for a unit that wasn't good anyway. Rattler's going to be under duress. And they're a defense that lost 2 NFL corners this offseason. They've allowed pass production to worse offenses than Brady Cook and Luther Burden. I'll lay the points with Missouri. My second favorite is one we just talked about. It's that greasy over in Baylor, Cincinnati. We have 2 defenses that are entirely inept. Cincinnati has actually been in the top 60 for offensive efficiency, so they can score some points. Their problem's been on defense. Baylor's offensive efficiency, not quite as high, but they've also played 3 games with Sawyer Robertson. With Blake Shapen back under center, they're now passing over 9 yards per attempt. They should be able to get this Cincinnati defense too. For my last one, I'll say UCF against Oklahoma. I think it's just an overrating of Oklahoma coming off the win over Texas. They lost their best receiver, one of their best linemen in Medower. And UCF is getting back John Rhys Plumlee, presumably. Cross your fingers on that after last game's shenanigans. But it's a lot of points for 2 good teams facing each other. I'll take UCF in this spot too.
Adding one more for us. We're just going to put all our favorite teams on here. I know they've played better of late, but I still do not like this Oklahoma State team whatsoever. Give me West Virginia -3.5. I just think at home, this is going to be a much tougher challenge than Kansas State and Kansas, who, even though I really firmly believe Kansas should have beat them last week. I watched that game from start to finish. Fascinating slate of games. Again, appreciate everybody hanging out with us, breaking these down on this first look edition of Betting You. We'll have more games on Thursday for you guys. If you have any questions at all, just let us know. We appreciate all the support. Make sure you check out the links in the description. Again, some might not be for you. Some might be exactly what you're looking for. We just want to make sure you got all the opportunities to grow closer to this odd chopper community and get some extra money when you can. But let's make some money. Let's keep it rolling here. It's been a great year so far, and we're not stopping anytime soon. For me, for Matt, for the teams on the screen, thanks again for tuning in, everyone. Good luck. Enjoy the week. Talk to you in a couple days.